Last lesson of Unit 4, we're going to get into the Atlantic slave trade, and here's where you're going to see societies are going to be impacted because of trade and business, trade and commerce, if you will. So you're going to notice that when I say societies, I'm going to say both Africans mostly, but Europeans and people in the North American or New World colonies. Thank you, Christopher Columbus. So again, we're going to be looking at this thing called the Middle Passage, also known as Atlantic slave trade, also known as slave trading. So triangle trade, all interchangeable terms here. So we talked about slavery in the past. We talked about multiple ways. Most notably, slaves were fighting in the gladiator, the Colosseums, if you will. Slavery being a thing after being captured in war. Basically, if I were to beat you in a war, I can make you do whatever I wanted now, or you would die. And then lastly, we talked about the possibility of these pyramids maybe or maybe not being made by slaves in Europe. But can't really prove it either way. But why does this all matter? Is because now you're going to see the biggest example of slavery, and that is the Atlantic slave trade. So you're going to see 12.5 million Africans are going to be captured from their homes and taken to the New World, all over the New World. So North America, Caribbean, South America, and roughly about 10.7 million survived. Now, they're coming up with these numbers because people kept very accurate records of how many people were on ships. Reason being, they had to kind of know how much money they were going to make, and they had to know that it was worth their while because these trips were super dangerous, and at the same token, really messed with your health. So you're going to notice that roughly about 400,000 are actually going to make it up to the current United States. And you're going to notice that countries here, Portuguese, British, French, and Spain and Dutch from the Netherlands, they're going to be the ones that are going to be doing it. And the reason being is that they had some of the best boats during the time. So, true or false? All captured Africans were taken to North America. So, here is where you're going to see the term triangle trade come into play. So let's start here with Europe. So let's say they're the ones that are going to drive most of this, which you'll understand why in Unit 5. But they're going to have the manufactured goods. This is going to be the guns, the clothing, the iron, and then in this case, alcohol that Africans will want. So I know what you're saying. Wait a minute. Africans are the ones getting kidnapped. Yes. So they actually employed certain tribes to go and catch their rivals and keep them alive so they can be loaded up on boats and then be sent to the new world. You're going to notice that they are going to be the ones that are doing the manual labor in this new world. So, again, working in fields, making sugar, and all the hard stuff that goes with farming. And after they produce it, all of that stuff is going to go back to Europe where the whole process is going to start over. So notice how it makes a triangle. So that's kind of why it's called it. But if you look at what is being sent to the different parts, it all kind of makes sense in the process, I guess you would say. To make the stuff, they need the stuff. To get the stuff, well, they're not going to work for it. Have other people do it. And then, kind of again, completing it all back. So, why slavery? Again, to put it all into big perspective, let's use the United States or North America in this case before we actually declared our independence, which we'll talk about in Unit 5. We are going to be colonies of Europe. We are going to be encouraged from different countries around Europe, especially Britain, to go and settle there. Well, we know farming. So when we get here, we are going to set up different farms to do different things. So again, we don't really want to work because that's the hard stuff because the farms are getting so big, not one person can do it all. So this is where slavery comes in. They were the labor. And at the end of all of it, you're going to notice that these products, especially tobacco, is going to be the real driving force. So if you guys know your southern agriculture, in North Carolina alone, there's tobacco fields everywhere. I mean, there's something called Tobacco Road, for Christ's sakes. So, why does this matter? Is because this economic need is going to drive up the population of slavery or slaves all along the South. And if you know your American history, these are going to be basically slave holding states, with an exception of a few of them in here. But again, this is what's going to divide our country eventually down the road. This whole idea of are all men really created equal, if you will. So, question: true or false? Captured Africans were mostly used on farms. So, here's where we need to make note. I want you to flip over and I want you to watch the crash course for the Atlantic slave trade. So, you're going to notice that he's going to give a lot of good information, and I just want you to open your perspective on this. And again, this is all because of the Columbian Exchange. So, now that this new world, new stuff is established, people need to do said work.